started in just a second. So if you are standing and you want to sit, there are usually more chairs, folding chairs in that entry room, and we can set them up around the edge here. There's one chair over here.
Here's a chair.
Where's the chair? Whoever needs a chair. No, I gave it.
And if you want to stand, that's fine too. All right. I'm Dave Olson. I'm Secretary of the Council. I'm going to be acting chair tonight because Chair Toutant is out of town. Will the council members introduce themselves from my right?
Barbara Mathewson.
Dave Olson.
Tamar Powell.
Glenn Erickson. Dan Haggerty.
And council member Weil will not be here this evening either. All right. So on to our first agenda item, the Board of Supervisors report. Ellie, do you have anything for us?
I do. Good evening, Midcoast Community Council and community members. My name is Ellie Dahlman, and I'm here on behalf of San Mateo County Supervisor Don Horsley. And I have just a few items to update you on. The first is to let you know that at the recent Board of Supervisors meeting, the board approved contracts for the Moss Beach Playground to purchase brand new replacement play structures there. So the next step will be to place the order for that equipment, which we anticipate will be between 3 to 6 months delay to receive the equipment. So I will keep you posted as we have more information about the period of time that we will have to close the park, but that won't be for a while. And let's see, the next item that I have for you, Supervisor Horsley, after seeing the agenda for this evening and the topic of the California Coastal Trail, he just asked that I bring to your attention that back on April 23rd of this year, the board approved a $50,000 funding amount of Measure K discretionary funds to the Coastside Land Trust to help support final designs and environmental documents for the Phase 2 Wavecrest segment of the California Coastal Trail. So I'd be happy to, I can leave the memo with you all, but this is just to show that, you know, really the county is committed to working with partners to complete the California Coastal Trail, and it's going to take a village, you know, all of us working together to get that done. And then I also wanted to bring to your attention another item that was approved at one of the the earlier meeting this month, where the county approved a memorandum of understanding with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy for the preparation of a fine-scale GIS mapping of physical and natural landscapes in the county. And this GIS data will be collected including the location, extent of communities and species of vegetation, surface characteristics, landscape level, hydrology, topography, fire fuels, and this information will help to classify all impervious and non-impervious ground surfaces. It'll help to model watershed boundaries, stream center lines and subsurface flows, identify fire fuels in areas of high risk for fire spread, and determine relative cover of forest stands. And there's a variety of project partners that are really interested in this data, including the county, National Park Service, Mid-Penn Open Space District, SFPUC, and Peninsula Open Space Trust, and as well as a variety of county departments that are involved in this. When completed, this project will assist departments in achieving many countywide priorities, including managing and reducing fire fuels, preserving and restoring native habitat, eradicating invasive plant species, coordinating and demonstrating compliance with Regional Water Quality Control Board, municipal regional permit, monitoring and mitigating the impacts of sea level rise, issuing permits, and enforcing land use policies. So there's a lot more information online, but I just thought that was an interesting item to share that would touch the coast side, but as well as the rest of the county. And I also had some information related to the the RFP for the Half Moon Bay Airport location, and of course the Wi-Fi is not coming up because I had info on my iPad. But there, let's see, so there were some questions regarding the RFP process from one of the MCC members. You're all probably familiar with the location where 30 Cafe formerly was at the Half Moon Bay Airport. So just wanted to update you that the deadline to submit questions and comments and exceptions has been extended to June 17th for anyone who's interested in submitting an application for that, to rent that space. And then the deadline to submit a proposal has been extended to June 24th. And the once proposals are received, there's a proposal review panel that will include an MCC council member, which I'm sure you may or may not have already identified someone, Dan. And it will also include the Half Moon Bay Airport Pilots Association board member, the county's real property manager, Dawn, and the DPW division manager. And there was a question at the last meeting from Dan about the walkthrough that had been scheduled for people who are interested in submitting a proposal for that. And in order to maintain fairness and to prevent any bias, panel members were asked to refrain from attending the walkthrough. You know, the walkthrough was not mandatory for potential applicants or interested parties, and panel members may have met some, but not all the proposers, you know, potentially causing some bias in the process. So that's the reason that panel members were asked not to attend the walkthrough. And the purpose of the RFP panel is to evaluate RFP proposals received, determine if the proposals meet requirements outlined in the RFP, and rank the proposals received. And based on the panel's review and ranking, DPW, Real Property, and the airport will interview the most qualified proposers. And just two more items about Half Moon Bay Airport, and I'll be done here. There was a question about rent proposed for the space in the RFP, and the airport informed me that due to the age of the terminal building, it's aging, the airport has lowered the rate from $1.9 per square foot down to $1.2 per square foot. The 1.9 was what was paid by the previous tenant, so currently it's being offered at $1.2 per square foot. And then the other piece of the monthly rent, as most of us probably know, is utilities. In addition to the monthly lease payment, the original tenant, 30 Cafe, was paying $1,200 per month to the airport for what are considered pass-through utilities. However, the actual average cost of utilities for 30 Cafe was around $3,300, which is significantly more than what was being paid. So in the new RFP that has been put out, the actual average cost of utilities that 30 Cafe was requiring was included in the RFP. So that may be the reason, or that would, I know there were some concerns raised about an increase in the rental rate. So while the cost per square foot is going down, the actual cost of utilities with this new RFP will be, the tenant will be responsible for paying those. And then there was also, the last item is there's also a question regarding the septic system for the, for that space at the Half Moon Bay Airport where 30 Cafe was operating. And the airport informed me that the airport-owned and maintained septic system is fully operational. And according to the previous lease that they had with 30 Cafe, if any grease from the restaurant entered the septic system, the restaurant was responsible for the cost of the grease removal and any resulting septic system repair that would have resulted due to the damage caused by the grease. However, the airport historically has not passed those damage costs on to the restaurant, And each year, the airport has actually spent more on septic maintenance due to grease than they have received in revenue from the restaurant. And they continued to have 30 Cafe operating there because they understood the value of the cafe at the airport. And the airport expects the lease terms that were previously in there for 30 Cafe, which holds the tenant responsible for any damage that the grease entering the septic system would cause. The airport will maintain that the tenant would be responsible for any costs related to damage that that they do not have proper systems to avoid. So, and then the last thing is that the grease.
Excuse me a moment, Ellie. The folks in the back, I know it's crowded back there, but folks in the back room.
Can they stand behind you?
Or can you turn up the mic a little bit?
So unfortunately,
there's
it's
no
not.
microphone.
Yeah,
So
I'll
if you could
speak up a
pass
little
on
more.
that they have to go out in the stairway, we'd
Can they
appreciate
come
it.
behind you?
Or
Why
can you
not?
move the table?
I don't know if we have a
Or move the
presentation.
tables back?
Hold on a second. We can't just move the tables. It's a big deal to move the tables.
Well, do you mind?
Can you hold on a second? Hold on.
I'm not rushing.
Excuse me, let him
Trying to speak.
I got you.
How many people are in that back room that want to come up in this room? Okay.
And then there's another 20 in the stairwell.
So, well, they're not all going to be able to speak. If some of the people that are standing in the back want to come up to the very front of the room, go ahead and come up now while we're taking this very short break.
So if you could just walk right through around here, around the back there.
Going again. Thank you very much. This is a much bigger crowd than we had expected. I apologize for the size of the room. But if we can keep people quiet, then we can move on. We still have more people back here. You can sit in there. We're starting to exceed the legal limits for the room, so it's probably going to be it.
So that's all I have to share today, and so I'd be happy to take any questions or comments from the council.
Nobody heard it.
Ellie, one question.
Luckily, all of these meetings are filmed and posted on YouTube. So if you check out the Midcoast Council website, you'll be able to rewatch and hopefully hear, thanks to the microphones here.
Yeah, the microphones for everybody in the room are only for the video. So we keep the room quiet, people will be able to hear. All right, Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't want to drag this issue down, but I do understand that there was a grease trap. I think the problem is that the septic system is just not functioning well. There were some problems with it. You didn't mention that part of the RFP is that the new tenant is going to have to invest $50,000 to redo the county's, the airport's septic system. That's what I was, is that changed?
The airports,
A lot of changes.
the airports inform me that the septic system is fully operational, and so what you.
Well, it's been problematic. Everybody knows
I think
that.
from my understanding, and I can circle back with the airports, but from what they've told me, it sounds like there may be a need to ensure that the grease trap is functioning properly, to ensure that the grease stays in the grease trap, gets trapped there, and doesn't enter the septic system and clog it
Yeah.
or cause issues.
Okay. We talked about that more. The Catch Joanne now is in danger. We lost 30 Cafe, unfortunately, due to inaction with the airport allowing him to continue the lease. Now Catch Joanne has padlocks on the bathroom. That is not sustainable. I understand that the county has walked through and has kind of looked at that. Is that true? anything about that?
I have not heard anything about Catch Joanne, but I'd be happy to circle back with the county to get more information and report back.
Okay. Well, there's
And
a
so
lot.
the main issue is the restrooms there.
The sustainability and property owner to, some kind of exception. That place has been there for 40 years. I've been going there for 30 years. I love that place. It's a local, nugget that the community loves and uses. yes, it's small, but there's just, it's a situation. And I don't know what the best solution is, but I surely do not want to lose another place to have breakfast, another family-owned business on the coast. It's my take that family-owned businesses along the coast are under attack right now. And I really want to stand out and protect Catch Joanne. I want them to be able to provide for the community and visitors. So that's another thing that's just come up, and I'm interested in talking with Supervisor Morsley.
Yeah, I can follow.
Solution to that issue.
I can follow up maybe with planning and building to see if, I don't know if maybe through code they've been involved with the restroom issue,
Well,
or is that?
There's an ADA lawsuit going on. And
So Dan,
that's what started.
we're getting deep into an agenda.
I just wanted to be able to, we could talk.
Yeah.
We
Sure.
could talk to
Yeah, I'll check in with the
Supervisor
departments to see.
about this issue and other small, family-owned businesses that are under attack on the coast side.
Okay, great.
Did anybody else on the council have a question for Ellie?
I just have a really quick. I was wondering if you would be able to find out, the MCC has a very small office in the terminal building. It smells so bad of mold. When you go in there, you have to hold your breath. And I don't know who to contact, or how can you find out?
Yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with the airports division. If there's ever an issue with that space, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll pass on the concerns to the department and see what resolution we can get.
Great, thanks, Ellen.
All right. Any other questions for Ellie? Okay. Any other government officials want to speak? Harvey? Yeah. Thanks, Ellie.
I will be brief, considering the number of people here. Harvey Warbeck, Mayor of Half Moon Bay. I have a couple of items related to the coastal trail, which I think are of interest to Midcoast people. Number one, this last weekend, this incredibly hot weekend, the trash barrels at Surfers Beach were totally overflowing. There are pictures that have been sent to review next door, and I agree that it's really unacceptable. So I asked our city manager what the story is, and this is really weird about who owns what at Surfers Beach. I just learned from my own use here. The beach is owned by Half Moon Bay. The strip of land that the trash barrel, the single trash barrel now, is maintained by the Granada Community Services District. Then if you go a little bit further south, when the land expands, that's county land. So it's really a mess as to whose jurisdiction is what. In any event, our city manager is going to work with GCSD to try to make it so that there will be additional trash barrels, and the city will go in halfies probably on having those extra trash barrels. So it's an interesting jurisdictional issue there. The other thing that has come up recently is the existence or non-existence of a restroom at the RV park. And the owner of that facility needs to get a coastal development permit from the city. And that's an active negotiation. I've been saying this for a while, but I'm hopeful that in the not too distant future, that CDP will be granted, and it will involve a new restroom that will be on the trail, that will be accessible to the visitors and not either locked up or become a laundry room or just not accessible. So those are my two comments about coastal trail issues. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Dan?
Yes, on the garbage cans, I think the issue is that it's the 4-day weekends and the big, the hot weather. So we need to have somebody on call to put 6 garbage cans there, 24/7 may not be the solution. But that's everybody knows it's been a long-going issue. The RV bathrooms, you know, it'd be great to have those open again. I'm just gonna make a comment. I know there has been talk about putting a new structure up against the trail. I think that's a big mistake. It should be somewhere off the trail, well off the trail, because, you know, people use bicycles quickly, there's passing people, walking dogs, you know, it's.
So Dan,
We wanna have.
agenda item, clarifying questions only, please.
I'm just making
Okay.
a statement regarding what you
Okay,
reported.
no, I hear you. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. We have one more government official in the back, Chris Johnson, making his way forward to the mic.
Thanks, Dave. All right, dog people are here. So my name is Chris Johnson. I'm currently a resident of El Granada, but I was on the MCC, and I'm acting as the liaison between the San Mateo County Dog Management Committee and the MCC. So I'm giving you an update on our latest meeting, which was June 4th, I think, this past Monday, last week. Some interesting things that came out of that. Our on-leash pilot program will go into effect June 15th. There's a soft kickoff, I guess, Friday evening at Junipero Serra Park. That's one of the two places where we're going to have this on-leash pilot. The other is at Coyote Point, over on the other side of the bay. Okay, so that's happening on the 15th. I mentioned last meeting there was some question in my mind as to what the mission of this dog committee is now. In my personal opinion, there's been some drift. I went to Supervisor Horsley and asked for clarification. We discussed it at this last dog policy meeting. My analysis is, in my mind, there hasn't been a strong resolution to my questions, but we're moving forward, trying to do the best we can, and have to have faith in the people that we're working with, and I do. Okay, I asked, there'll be a pilot report at the end of the, we passed some evaluation criteria in the meeting before last to evaluate the on-site pilot program. And there will be a pilot report, there will be a recommendation given to the Board of Supervisors at the end of the 6-month pilot report. And I asked some questions about this recommendation that will be given to the Board of Supervisors. Will the dog committee have input? Let me back up a second and say I'm a member of the dog management committee. I was also a member of the dog policy committee started by Marlene Finley in 2016. There's a couple other people in this room that have also been on that committee since it started in 2016. I mention that because I've been there since the beginning. I've been to every meeting or almost every meeting. I've seen this committee grow and feel like I have some institutional memory on that. Okay, so with regard to the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors about the pilot report, will the dog committee have input? Yes, was the answer. Will there be a consensus vote on the draft? For example, when we passed the evaluation criteria for this pilot program, it required a full consensus of the committee, meaning everybody had to agree. We use a fist of 5, 5 being totally agree, fist being don't agree, 3 being the minimum point at which it would be acceptable to move on. Everybody on the committee had to vote at least 3, and there was some committee members who had to be urged to vote 3. So there will be no such consensus vote on the draft. So that we will have input on it, but we will not be able to give our consensus vote on to whether that draft meets our approval. The Parks Department is going to author this recommendation, and in late January, February 2020, a report will be presented to the Parks Department by the committee, and they will decide whether to recommend that on to the Board of Supervisors. I want to correct a mistake I made in the last meeting, and also mention that 2 other members who have been on these 2 dog committees since the beginning also had the same misunderstanding. So whether it was just we heard what we wanted to hear, which is definitely possible, or as I will discuss later during the next agenda item, maybe there's been some policy drift. The off-leash pilot I had announced would start in July of 2019, so next month. That is not true. In July of 2019, we will start working on the off-leash pilot, hopefully to enact that around January, February of 2020. So it's going to be a 6-month period where we're apparently working on the off-leash pilot program so that we can put it into effect early 2020. I apologize for that mistake. Again, maybe I heard what I wanted to hear. Thank you, Dave. Does the council have any questions?
Not for me, it's been very clear. Anybody else?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are there any other government officials who want to make a report under this item? Okay, we will move on to public comment. I have a bunch of speaker slips. Most of them appear to be dog issues in one way or another in the parks. I'm assuming that is intended to be under the parks issues. Did anybody who put dogs in any form on their speaker slip want to speak on public comment on something not on the agenda? Okay, I have two other slips that look like they're public comment. I have one from Mary Lorenas and Greg Diakov. Did you want to speak under public comment?
Yes, please.
I know you did. I was asking about Greg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
There you go. Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Make room for squeeze by safely.
Yes, no more falls, please.
Hi, I'm Mary. Is it on?
It just picks up the sound.
Oh, hello, I'm Mary Lorenas, and I live in Moss Beach. Given all the number of people here tonight, I hope this is really appropriate. I would like to offer my condolences to Lynn Erickson and your family for your loss of Gail. In the 30 years that I've lived on the coast and participated in I don't know how many meetings on environmental advocacy, proposed development, changes in infrastructure, Highway 1 safety, sea level rise, and all the other coastside issues that we are faced with, it was hardly a time when I did not see Gail in the audience, often speaking up for protection of our natural resources, responsible development, holding agencies accountable for their actions, and preservation of our coastal community. Always advocating for her beloved coastside, along with her husband, Len. Gail walked her talk. She was a board member of Granada Sanitary District, and Gail was one of your own, a former member of the Midcoast Community Council. Gail brought with her to everything she did a bright spirit and determination. Gail was quite dogged in her views, and once she got a hold of you, you were going to hear the facts of the situation. This, along with her genuine care for our community, is what made Gail a very special person. Losing a spouse is heartbreaking. I wish Len and your family the strength to move through this loss with compassion.
Thank you, Mary.
I continue to be impressed by the courage it takes to be a member of the MCC. I want to report on the field research I conducted for the MCC last week. You may not have known about it. I was back in Boston for a college reunion, obviously my 25th. And I had occasion, as I traveled throughout the state, to use something called a roundabout. You may have heard of it. Somebody was proposing that we put a couple in Moss Beach. And I want to say that the roundabout is a traffic control. It goes right up there with the great lies like, the check is in the mail, trust me, and the fish are over there. I saw traffic come to a halt. I saw traffic continually at 20, 15, maybe 25 miles an hour. So if anybody's thinking about putting a roundabout as a solution to our traffic flow, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I would like to sell you. And I just want to say, please, whatever we do, do not let them put roundabouts in. Some nicely timed lights with a bunch of sensors way up the road in each direction would be a good idea. Thank you, and in solidarity, woof.
Thank you, Greg. All right. We are now on to our consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, the minutes for May 22nd, 2019. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second? All right. No discussion. All in favor? Thank you. All right. We are now on to our regular agenda. And the first item on the agenda is Peggy Jensen, the San Mateo County Parks Interim Director, and she will provide an update on parks issues. Given the number of people in the room and that who may not have been in an MCC meeting in the past, I want to caution you, please do not interrupt the speaker. We will have time for comment and questions afterwards. Thank you. Go ahead, Peggy.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. My name is, just as you mentioned, is Peggy Jensen. I'm Deputy County Manager and currently Interim Parks Director. I'm here this evening at the request of Mr. Erickson. He presented to me 3 questions that he'd like me to report back on to your commission. The first question was the county's search for a permanent Parks Director. I'm pleased to report that the county is in the process of reviewing 5 proposals from outside search firms to conduct the search for the next county Parks Director. In reviewing those proposals, it will take, once the search firm is hired, 4 months according to their schedule to identify and select the next director, which pushes us out to probably mid-October. I'm assuming it usually takes, for positions like that, a month to 6 weeks for someone to relocate if they're not in the area. So I would assume that you would be getting a new Parks Director for San Mateo County late October, early November. So the second question was the status of the California Coastal Trail, and I think the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Erickson, was in light of what is the Parks Department's involvement?
And in particular, the California Coastal Trail in the Midcoast going north up to the Devil's Slide in Vienna.
Right. What I can tell you and reassure you is that the Parks Department and all of San Mateo County, including the Board of Supervisors, is very supportive of the Coastal Trail. As Ms. Dahlman mentioned, recently funding was given out of our Measure K allocation for an area of the Coastal Trail that's south of here. But in terms of this specific area, right now, the county is not focused on the Coastal Trail because we have significant projects that we will shortly be directed by the board to undertake. Our priority at this point is on 3 projects that have been identified by the county manager. We will be getting additional funding for the Reimagined Flood Park project over on the coast side or bay side. We will be getting funding to start work on the Southern Esplanade restoration or Eastern Esplanade restoration at Coyote Point, which right now what's happening out there is that the Bay Trail is eroding into the bay, and we need to shore up that area and also provide better ADA access to the beachfront in that area. That's a major project for us. And the third, and actually largest project, is our focus on preparing Memorial Park farther down the coast and slightly inland for the 100th anniversary of that park, which was the first park in San Mateo County in 2024. Just about everything is being replaced. We're currently in the process of building a new wastewater treatment plant at that park. We recently put in a new potable water treatment plant. All of the sewer and water lines to both of those plants and also to all the campsites and picnic and day use areas are also being replaced. And when that work is complete, we will be repaving all of the park roads. In addition to that, we are going to be replacing bathrooms facilities down there. And I don't know how many of you have been to Memorial Park recently, but those facilities desperately need to be replaced. We're also going to be replacing many of the shower buildings. So we are preparing Memorial Park for future generations of campers, and that is a major project for the parks. So we are committed to the Coastal Trail, but given the funding that we're going to be receiving and the recommendations from the county manager, our focus is on these 3 projects in the upcoming 2 years. Your final question, as I understood it, was the possibility of the Parks Department collaborating with MCC on a Parks Forum in the fall. We'd be happy to work with you on that.
All right.
That concludes my report.
Okay, great, thank you. Stay there for a moment. So, any clarifying questions for anybody on the council?
With regard to the coastal trail, I think there are some specific park area issues that I'm not going to go into detail here, but they relate to the Green Valley Trail in part, but more largely the whole concept of a trail that actually gets you from the harbor all the way up into Pacifica. That needs attention. As you do that, and this relates to the park forum, if you look at that stretch of land, you have our local districts, we have state, we have county, and we have federal parks. And so during the tenure of Marlene Finley, there was a successful annual forum conducted that would bring in the management from those other parks to both talk about issues and consider things. And in particular, with regard to the coastal trail and parking, the collaboration of those groups is really essential. That over the last year and a half, in the absence of somebody in the forum position or in the director position, that's sort of fallen aside. So I would hope to see us sort of give focus. What you're saying is we could expect hopefully a new director by November, but even in the fall before they come, to have a robust forum to look at some of these issues. Because I really feel that the county itself, while it's considered the lead, really has to have the collaboration of those other parks to do things successfully. So I would like to see that forum shed light on that and hopefully lead us to an action plan that can be followed. So that was a question around the forum there. And really those two relate. So with respect to the issues I put forward, I understand that for a while there was consideration of staying on an internal, but now you've opened the search to internal and external with the support of an agency. So, thank you.
Pam?
Yeah, I was just curious if you were able to share the dollar amount that we're going to be spending on the three parks, these projects that we just mentioned,
I think the total amount is going to be $26 million,
between the three parks.
those three projects. The board goes into budget hearings next week, so I can provide that information to Ms. Dahlman, and she can update you at your next meeting after the board finishes their budget hearings.
Okay. Are there any need, or are there any projects involved with underground passes for pedestrians, and with any of those projects?
Not that I'm aware of.
Underpass? Okay, thank you.
I have one question. I talked to Sam Hertzberg a while back about the Quarry Park Master Plan, and I haven't heard anything in a while. Do you know what the status of the master plan is for Quarry Park?
That's a project that we are working on. We have a lot of things on our plate right now, and I don't know exactly the schedule for that, but I know it is one of our priorities, and again, I'll get back to Ms. Dahlman and so she can share that with you.
Okay, great. All right, now, I have 11 speaker slips here. They're pretty much all on dog issues, which is not strictly speaking on the agenda tonight. In the interests of airing public concerns, and obviously I can see how people are oriented on this, we will try and let as many people speak as we can, but we do not want to be here till 10 or 11 at night. I have 11 speaker slips. And Peggy, I'm assuming they're going to be directing their questions at you, so if you could hang around, it would be great. When people speak, they need to come up to the podium where Peggy is standing now, and the video will not pick them up. And I want to ask if there are people who plan to speak who have not turned in a speaker slip. If you do, please raise your hand so I can get a quick count. Looks like just a few. Okay. Then we're going to have it, it's 2 minutes per person. And given how many people we have, I would appreciate it if, somebody else has said the majority of what you want to say, if you can sort of summarize and say you agree. It's up to you, but we will run a timer tonight just because we have so many people. So the first two people will be, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name, Marty Kingshill, and second will be Mary Lorenas.
Glenn, I'm sorry to hear about Gail. I did not know. When's my 2 minutes going to start?
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the other thing I will say is please introduce yourself, so the name will be correct on the video. And if you can give your town at least of where you live, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, my name is Marty Kingshill. I live in El Granada. In 1990, I'm unusual here. I don't have a dog. In 1996, I joined Midcoast Parklands. I'll call it MPL. That is the board of directors that took care of Quarry Park. We were a little nonprofit. I was there until it was given to the county, so that was around 15, 17 years, something like that. So as we went through Quarry Park, we were allowed to make the rules as we saw them fit, and that's really important. After probably 6 or 7 years that I was on the board, Rich Gordon came to us. He was the supervisor for us, and he wanted to take the park back. And so he talked about it, and we talked about, well, we had already passed a rule in our park that dogs could be in the park. So we asked Rich about how that would work in the county with dogs, and he said they probably would not allow dogs. So we didn't let him have it back. So about probably 4 years later, Dave Holland came to us, and he wanted to try and get the park back from us. And at that time, the park was off-leash. Dogs could go anywhere in the park off-leash. Now, we're only talking about 40 acres, not 500. They could go anywhere in the park off-leash, but the tot lot and the parking lot. So as we progressed with Dave Holland, the Quarry Park had no funding when we were taking care of it. There was no money for it. We raised money in the community. That's how it got funded. County wasn't paying us a penny to maintain that park and operate it. So we talked to Dave about the dog issue, and he said, the county's not going to allow dogs. Can I? I'll be real fast.
We'll give you an extra minute.
Thank you. He said, we're not going to allow, the county would not allow dogs in the park, likely. But what we can do in our agreement, we can phrase it as like uses. What that means is uses that were in place when MPL ran Quarry Park. My question for you guys is, where did that, and are you the county lady? Oh, I'm sorry. Where, so my question for the MCC and you is, where in the hell did that paperwork go? Where did that agreement go? I can find copies of it if I have to, but I'd like to know where it went.
That man's got a sign that attests to what you're saying right there.
No, yeah, well, that's a sign, it does say that, but there's paperwork, agreements, where'd it go?
So I would assume it's in the MPL hands.
No, the county has a copy of it, somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
It's not in MPL hands. I can go to the president of MPL, and he probably still has that information.
Yeah, that
If
would
I
be
have
good.
to, I will.
Yeah, it would be great to do it that way. I will ask Ellie to see if she can track it down as well.
So here's my question. The county made an agreement with us. We didn't go to the county to get them to take the park back. They should have the paperwork. If I would have known how things were going to go, I would have never voted for the county to get the park back. I see all this support. It would be great to have this support in Quarry Park. And the reason that dogs were allowed in the park off leash is dog users were using the park more than anybody. And when we talk about whether dogs should be off leash or on leash or not at all, I think what you have to do is have examples. You can argue till your face is blue about whether you should be in the park or not with dogs, but when you have examples where it worked, that's the best thing you could have. In the 15 or 17 years I was there, there was one incident, and it was one of our board members had their dog running around, and it went up and it was a little tiny dog, a yappy dog, and went and challenged a pit bull that was on leash. So that wasn't a very smart dog.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Mary Lorenas, followed by Brigitte Bauer.
I'm Mary Lorenas, and I live in Moss Beach. I was actually going to make a comment about support for managed visitation at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I know that's not directly related to what Peggy was talking about, but so the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve Master Plan, Policy 2, primary purpose of the visitor use of the reserve will be education. Informational materials, visitor orientation, signage, and interpretive programs and materials will emphasize the educational mission of the reserve. Recreational use of the intertidal reefs and Pillar Point Marsh should be explicitly discouraged. In the master plan, it says, managed visitation and visitation goals described in the master plan includes limiting total daily attendance to 500 people per day with a limit of 300 people at any given time on the reefs. When I was out on the reefs during these last few hot days helping the rangers, there were so many people on the reefs, hundreds of people on the reefs, that when one ranger had to go get a drink of water, had to go use the restroom, by the time I took her place, there were 5 different groups of people who had already gone past the orange cone line, which protects the seals. So if there's too many people on the reefs, the rangers, the park aides, even docents when they're out there cannot handle that many people. And it does not bode well for trying to protect the seals or the natural resources. So I'm asking that parks consider the master plan. Can't think of the word for managing visitation and restricting number of people on the reefs. Bye. Thank you.
Brigitte, followed by Nicole Scary.
So it's me, right? Yeah, okay. So I have a 3-minute thing. I will have it and I will read fast.
Please introduce yourself and
yes.
say where you live.
My name is Brigitte Bauer and I have been an El Granada resident for 5 years and we have a 14-year-old dog. So here on the coast you can go to Pillar Point, Surfers Beach and Quarry Park at any time and find dogs off leash. It's a way of life here, and I understand it has always been. Dog owners like me walk our dogs every day, and over my 5 years here, I've only seen dogs off leash splashing in the waves at Surfers Beach, chasing balls or sniffing along Pillar Point Bluff. I've seen no trouble, just the joy of people and animals alike enjoying the outdoors. Now you want to make this a crime. You want to ticket and punish. You want to destroy this happy place. My reality is utterly different from the one of the people who want to change the status quo for the worse. I would really like you to come on a walk with me, or anyone here with a dog, and tell me what it is you see that I can't for the life of me understand. You can always point to some occasion where an aggressive dog has done something or an irresponsible owner caused something bad. By all means, hold those people responsible for that. I am talking about normal day-to-day life of the dog owners here today. We are not troublemakers or rule breakers. But this is a change that will diminish our quality of life. And we just don't want that. Before you send out rangers on this most thankless mission of ticketing dog owners, I think it would be only fair if each of you will have a vote or something to say about this, to take a walk with any of us here and tell us what it is you find criminal on that walk.
Okay, thank you.
Tell us what it is you've seen that is wrong. Tell us why you want to take it away from us.
Nicole Scary, followed by Bob Smith.
Hi, my name is Nicole Scary, and I have lived in El Granada since 2000. And I have 3 dogs, and I do rescue for Muttville. It's a senior rescue dog. And I just want to say that I am so thankful that the community is showing up tonight, and I'm so disappointed in how the San Mateo County Parks and the Board of Supervisors have never held a meeting after work and on the coast side so that we can include the community that is getting all these changes affected by to be part of the solution instead of just passing these rules that are now going to be punishing us and making us into criminals. San Mateo counties provide the least amount of dog walking access compared to any other counties and is moving at a snail pace to address this issue. While equestrians have long enjoyed 90% of trail access in the county parks, dog owners have about 5% of the trail access, and that's only due to the recent acquired of Quarry Park and Pillow Point Bluff. Moreover, there are 0 sanctioned off-leash trails and beaches in San Mateo County. All we're asking for is a fair share to the usage of our county parks, especially for on-leash dog walking. Why is there a pilot for on-leash dog walking and just 2 sites in San Mateo County? Because we dog owners pay our fair share of taxes. Furthermore, with the extensive medical research showing the benefits of having a dog and being outdoors, San Mateo County Parks should promote and expand the usage of its parks in all of its communities for everyone to get out with their dogs to exercise on a regular basis.
May we ask people to hold their applause, please? It's just slowing things down.
In conclusion, we're asking that San Mateo County Parks and the Board of Supervisors to do the right thing and give dog owners a fair access, including sanctioned off-leash access before they start ticketing us in July 1st.
Thank you. Bob Smith.
Yeah.
Followed by Chris Johnson.
I'm Bob Schmidt. I live in El Granada. I adopted a husky from Peninsula Humane Society after my Goldie died. This husky is very well trained. It heels on command. It's collar trained. I walk it on the beach at Mavericks in the morning. I walk Quarry Park in the evening. Dogs need to run, play, and do everything else. This is not this is open space community. The worst thing that happened was county parks coming in. We can't have a worse supervisor for our district regarding dogs. And he owns 2 dogs. And Peggy, I've been to 6 of your meetings. We go from 2, I gotta go to Redwood City. Takes a whole damn day. And what did we get? We don't get times, we don't get hours, we're gonna get ticketed. That's what you do for us. In conclusion, and I'll make it early and short, I'm so happy the city manager of San Mateo County is going outside the parks to find a county manager, because every other county has plenty of open space for dogs and off-leash. Marin, Alameda, you name it. You do a terrible job.
Chris Johnson, followed by Kid O'Doherty.
So Chris Johnson, resident of El Granada, member of the Dog Management Committee, also was on the Dog Policy Committee. So the dog situation is a symptom of a larger issue, and it's one of the issues that was discussed today. As a previous speaker said, I'm glad that the county is going out of house to look for a new parks director, but that almost didn't happen, okay? That's only because there was pressure on. This is the problem, all right? Since I was on the dog, started on the first dog committee in 2016, 3 long years ago, but I hardly remember that. There's been 4 parks directors, 4, okay? Marlene Finley, who started this, Marlene Finley is the person that got this moving. That is why the Dog Policy Committee was there and pushed its agenda. Marlene's a parks professional with decades of experience knowing how to handle parks issues, how to handle and develop policy. It's no criticism of Peggy, and that last comment, in my opinion, was too much, okay? When you have 4 directors in 3 years, you don't have an overarching strategy. You can't develop policy for the long term, okay? 2 of those directors were interim directors, okay, that are just placeholders. The other one was a full-on parks director that they hired that lasted a few months. Okay, so this is what I need to know from county parks. What lessons have they learned so that we don't have a parks director come in for a couple of months and leave? And I don't know why that person left. I never heard the real reasons, but there was something not right that the person only lasted a few months. I need someone with extensive parks experience. Let me list off the things that the Parks Department can't handle right now. Quarry Park Master Plan, been going on and on and on. The dog policy, apparently, in my opinion, the drift of the purpose, the mission of the dog committee and the policy. Green Valley Trail, which we were promised years ago, that was going to connect Gray Whale Cove with Devil's Slide Park. How are we going to get there? We're told by county that it's just too complicated, can't figure it out. It could be figured out. A professional parks person with decades of experience could handle these things at the same time. And now, unfortunately, I heard tonight, quote, county not focused on the coastal trail. What? I mean, but my point here is that I need to know from county, what lessons did they learn? What methodology are they going to use? I mean, to just say we're going out of house, great, so they're going on monster.com or something, going to pick somebody. What methodology and what is the criteria that are going to be used to determine, like, the person that is right for our size park system? I'm glad that everybody's here to hear my comments on this and less on the dog thing, because this is a bigger issue. This affects not only dog walkers and what happened to Midcoast parks and allowing what happened to the idea that we were going to expand the county parks to dogs in general. In my opinion, that is in question right now. Okay? We need the county to pick, to choose with intensive criteria and open discussion a county parks director that is going to be here for at least 5 years. If we don't have that, this is just a revolving door. We're never going to have any of these issues solved out here, because the county parks director is either going to be an intern person or someone's here for the short term that can't give the long-term vision to make the kind of policy and decisions that affect people. I mean, everybody that gets up here says, I've lived here for 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. Yeah, because we want to live here for a long time. And if we have parks director going through a turnstile, we're never going to have a vision for 10 or 20 years for my old age, my kids, my grandkids. How are they going to choose the county parks director? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Kit, followed by Margaret Dean, I think it is.
Yes. For starters, thank you for the service that you're all providing. It's an unenviable role and probably underappreciated, but it's very important. My name is Kit O'Doherty. I am an animal lover, animal welfare advocate. I've spent the last 17 years tending to the behavioral and emotional needs of dogs in our public's care. I'm a 15-year Peninsula Humane Society volunteer. I've also volunteered for San Francisco Animal Care and Control. I'm a current San Jose Animal Care Center. I'm a current volunteer for Berkeley Animal Care Services and Companions in Waiting. So I know a few things about dogs, but you don't have to know a lot about dogs to know they love to run and play, and they need to run and play. I'm a strong believer in the 5 freedoms. This started in the UK back in 1965, where a group of veterinarians outlined sort of the animal welfare standards for basic care for a lot of species, including dogs. In addition to freedom, they called it the 5 freedoms, in addition to freedom from hunger and thirst and freedom from discomfort and pain, there was the freedom to exhibit normal behavior. It is not normal for dogs to be kept on leash all of the time. They go crazy and behavioral problems start. So Dogs are here. There are species that are here. Some of us are working on reducing the overpopulation problem, but they are here, and we have a moral obligation to attend to their basic needs. So I would urge those in a position to influence this, to say that 5% of trail access, dog-friendly trail access, does not pass anyone's straight-face test. 0% of sanctioned off-leash areas is unacceptable. So I would encourage you to use your roles for an equitable distribution, right? That's really what we're calling for, equitable distribution. If we were smart, we would put off-leash areas in non-sensitive areas, et cetera, and thereby avoid folks who need to break the rules to meet their moral obligation to care for these beings, these lovely beings. We would control where we're having off-leash.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Margaret Dean, followed by Vicki Boyd.
I'm Margaret Dean. I live in Montera, 20 years. And this is in response to we were notified that there would be an announcement of ticketing at Quarry Park and Pillar Point Bluff. Before the citizens and voters of San Mateo County can support the sudden enforcement of the leash law, we need to understand how that opinion was reached and how this will impact us all on the coast side. However the information was gathered and whatever conclusion we all reach, I hope that decision does not impact whether or not more parks will be opened to dog walkers in San Mateo County. The coast side has no dog park, functionally, and within the last 20 years has lost many trails and open spaces previously available to exercise dogs. With the opening of the Tom Lantos Tunnel, more and more visitors are coming to exercise their dogs on the beautiful coast side. We welcome visitors, but open the other San Mateo County parks to dog walkers so that people can walk their dogs closer to home. Then, once you have handled that immediate problem, come back and help us with a dog plan. We need a plan that works for city, county, state, and national parks, so this is not a simple problem. Form a citizen fact-finding committee to come up with a proposal. Boulder, Colorado has an excellent system for voice and sight registration of off-leash dogs that seems to be working well for them. It lets everyone know the rules, makes sure trails are available for all to share, and is enforced with community consent. Our San Mateo County Citizens Committee could visit Boulder for a boondoggie and come back with a battle-tested, real-world proposal that will benefit dog lovers and the dog agnostic. Thank you.
Vicki Boyd, followed by Betsy Daly Cathell.
I'm going to have a question for you during my speech. So thank you for listening to everybody because it's really important. How many dog owners are there in San Mateo County?
Oh, I wish I had brought my material.
More or less, just ballpark it.
I'm going to say, Neil, a couple 100,000 dogs with maybe
40%.
40%.
40% of San Mateo, oh, sorry, Vicki Boyd, and I live in Burlingame Hills. And I come over to the coast every day to use your beach.
Thank you.
Because there's nowhere else to go. And my dog, I don't know, to your point, and God bless you for saying that, the dogs need to be off leash. It's a dog need. Human need too, but it's a dog need. So that's a staggering number of people that don't have a place to take. It's just a sheer number issue. We need somewhere to take our dogs. I don't know why it's so complex and why it got so analytical and psychoanalytical. It's so simple. You have that many people with dogs, we need somewhere to take our dogs. We're going to Pillar Point. It's working. I don't see any problems there either. I go every day. Why is this turning into such an issue? It's a non-issue. East Bay Parks, I drive to Livermore to go to Lake Del Valle because they have a whole acreage section for the dogs off leash. And they have another section where you can't bring your dog. I don't care because you've given me access over here with lake access, beach access, so I don't care that I can't go over there. And if someone doesn't want to be around dogs, they've got another option. It's so simple. Why is it getting so complex? And why is it taking so long? Why is it, I just don't understand. When I read that now Pillar Point is going to be leash required, I thought I misunderstood something. I thought, why are you taking this away? You should be giving us more. With 40% of people who have dogs and want to take care of our dogs and want to do the right thing by our dogs. And vote, and we will vote, for sure, we will vote. Yeah, it's not even about taxes, it's not even about money, is it? It's just about having a place to take the ones that we love. Has there been an issue with dogs? Maybe once. I believe there was a drowning at Poplar Beach. You're going to tell everybody there's no people allowed at Poplar Beach? I mean, that's not realistic. There might be an issue, but very seldom. Those of us who go there every day, anybody see issues? I've actually made some excellent close friends by going to the beach. So it's actually a recreation for me personally.
Thank you, Betsy. You're well over time.
Sorry.
Betsy is the next speaker.
Yes, I'm Betsy Daly Capel, and I live in Moss Beach, and I've lived there for 28, 29 years. And I've had a dog almost my entire life. And I live a couple of blocks away from the Blufftop Park. And so it is an integral part of my life. My dearest and closest friends I walk with every day with our dogs off leash. We socialize. Our dogs are happy. We have not had any big dogs killing little dogs or any fights. We have not had any problems. And I know there are a few isolated incidences of problems, but they're very minor. And it just, what I don't understand is when San Mateo County, in my understanding, is one of the wealthiest counties in the Bay Area. So why can't we use our resources for these parks to get our services, to push through these programs in a more timely fashion so that we can have a happy community? We need to have dogs off leash. We need to have more parks available for dogs to walk with their owners. And, you know, I don't understand why we can't do that. But having grown up or lived in this area for so long and having used the Blufftop Parks for so many years prior to it becoming a county park, it was always off leash. And same with Quarry Park. And so it just makes more sense to leave it as an off leash park. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one last speaker slip from Chris Hilton.
I'm Chris Hilton. I live in Moss Beach. My family's been part of the community for about 20 years. I actually had a question. Maybe you could answer it for me. So I live up against the bluffs, and that's where I walk my dog. I don't know who approved the new trail format for it, the retrail paving, whatever, the crushed rock, whatever it was. But I've now found more glass, broken tile, shards of metal, all within that crushed rock, embedded within that crushed rock. And I've now filled about a pint glass full of broken glass. So the problem is my dog does not like to walk on that trail, and I know that, Nicole, your dog does not like to walk on that trail. It hurts their feet as well, too. So if it's now becoming an on-leash, 6-foot leash area, and you're now having a trail surface that is antithetical to walking a dog, and hurting a dog and could hurt dogs' feet. I mean, I would ask any human here to walk barefoot on that trail. It's not really a conducive place to actually even have that kind of a format. And off-leash, they can walk on the side of the trail or they can walk anywhere they need to, but on an on-leash perspective, it's really bad, right? So that's just kind of my point to bring up. You know, I agree with, you know, a lot of people, my friends, some, you know, new and some old, and I walk with them every day and I love them, but I just a question I have. So. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's actually just grabs the entire area. Yeah.
Okay.
So, no worries. Yeah. And I actually have the glass jar I can give you. So, that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. looks like I have a couple more in the back. Can you
Hands up.
come on up? Ed Lorenas, is there anybody following Ed?
I would like to leave. And let us look at.
All right.
I'll be quick. I generally agree with most of the comments. Excuse me. I'm going to read my notes. So, one request is to please include some community member leaders in the hiring process so that they can reflect our views. So it's not just an internal thing that's going on. And then if you would also please make the process transparent so the community knows how you're doing what you're doing. You'll get a lot more respect from everyone if that does happen. It's probably what you're going to do anyway, but I thought I'd say it. I don't like that trail, that new rock either. My dogs don't like it, so if you could do something, I'll just put some crushed granite on it or something, but the dogs will walk along the edge, on leash or off leash. And on the topic of leash, my experience is that it's really not about the leash, and the law actually says the dog has to be under the control of the owner at all times. And my experience has been that the dogs on a leash were much more trouble than the dogs off a leash, and I think most people here would appreciate that. In fact, I have 2 dogs, and they've been attacked 4 times by dogs on a leash and never by a dog off leash. Let's see. I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Who else was back there? Was that you, Chris?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I get your slip when I get around that corner? Hi, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm from Moss Beach, and I really want to thank all the dog people for coming out today. I wish that we had this kind of support for these meetings, and in particular, meetings with county parks. County Parks right now is operating under cover of darkness. They're making policies with nonprofits that have either no people that live in the immediate area. They've changed policies at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve with an advisory committee with Friends of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. No public input. Nobody can attend those meetings. They're making these changes. I've requested meetings with Don Horsley to discuss parks with him, and Ellie told me he was not interested in meeting with me, that I had to work with parks. But it's really difficult to get a meeting with parks, particularly when they're picking and choosing who they're meeting with and the voices that they're hearing. So I really want to encourage you all to stay involved and be very involved in the selection of a new director. As Ed was saying before, we really hope that they will bring some stakeholders into the process of developing the job description and bring these representatives into the interview process. You should have a voice in deciding who the next director is. Right now, in the 4 top positions in county parks, we have an interim/county manager that's doing many, many jobs, including this one. The second in command has no parks experience and used to serve Supervisor Horsley. The third one came from a construction background and has no natural resource protection background. And we just lost our natural resources person in Ramona. She's leaving. So of the 4 top jobs in this department, we've got nobody with parks experience. So please stay involved. Please demand to be involved in this process. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, everyone. Peggy, do you want to respond to any of that?
Regarding the recruitment for the next park director, there were questions about the application. That should be available and open to anyone on the county Human Resources website. So that will be something everyone can look at. In addition, one of the steps that we are requiring the consultant to take, the outside consultant to take, is to meet with parks partners. If MCC would like, I'd be happy to entertain a recommendation from you all, one person to meet with those folks. So we'd be happy to do that.
Okay. We will select somebody.
Let's let's see, what else do I want to say? Oh, just in response to the question about our natural resources manager, Ramona has been with us for 5 years. She did a wonderful job in establishing our natural resources division. We are adding an additional natural resource specialist to that team, and the recruitment for Ramona's replacement closes on Thursday. So we are very committed to our natural resources group. And finally, just one of the things, I think that Mr. Johnson did a good job explaining where we are in terms of our dog work group. That's the process that has identified the 2 on-leash pilots. Their assignment is to identify the off-leash pilot. That pilot will be then presented back to the Board of Supervisors. That is the process that we need to use as soon as the work group has completed that work. What I wanted to mention is that we are doing extensive research, both throughout California and nationally. I've actually been to Boulder. I'm very familiar with the requirements and the classes that people who get those tags to have their dog off leash have to go through. It's a 2-day class, and they have to be renewed annually. So we're looking at those types of programs, doing lots of research. So we hope that we can provide extensive information, and our work group can come up with a recommendation that we can then put forward to the Board of Supervisors. It sounds like Mr. Johnson is keeping you all informed, but I'm happy to come back and provide any additional information about that process should you have questions in the future.
All right, thank you. Len?
So I'm not completely familiar on the details. So the new policy on terms of no off-leash in Quarry Park is set to go into effect on July 1st?
So,
and then there's also a pilot of off-leash that will happen sometime down the road.
So those are 2 separate things. Let me talk about the on-leash pilots. So today, and this actually became effective, I think, December 6th, when the board adopted changes to the dog ordinance that applies countywide. In November, they adopted it. 30 days later, it became effective. And with that change in the ordinance, dogs were allowed on leash in 6 areas, including 5 areas in the coast. The recommendation from the work group that Mr. Johnson had participated in, that Marlene Finley started, was to allow dogs on leash in areas where they had historically been allowed. Prior to that, the gentleman who spoke about Quarry Park was absolutely right. Dogs were not allowed on leash or off leash anywhere in the county. That's the ordinance that stood until last November when the board changed it.
Say that again? The last sentence, you're saying...
I'm sorry?
Could you just repeat that sentence that you said that for some period of time?
County ordinance until November of 2018 did not allow dogs in county parks or unleashed or on leash.
You mean going backwards, not at all, ever?
Ever, right.
So I was, excuse me, I was at the meetings that were being referenced there with Supervisor Director Holland, and at that point, Quarry Park, so the distinction is once Quarry Park came into the park system, you're saying it fell under it. And I would agree, I mean, I don't have the minutes at hand, but the spirit of that agreement would not line up with what you just said. But we'll have to search for the agreement.
I'm happy to look, I'm actually happy to refer any document that you all have regarding that to our attorneys to review.
Sure.
I'm not going to take any more public comment. I'm sorry, we have quite a bit already. I will say to everybody who is saying they were not familiar with the process, they didn't know what was going on, they didn't have any chance to speak about it, that this has been before the MCC for at least 18 months, probably longer than that, and we have reported on it numerous times. If you want to know what's going on the Midcoast with government issues, sign up for the MCC mailing list. MidcoastCommunityCouncil.org has the details. It's at the bottom of all of our agendas. And our website tends to carry a lot of news of interest to the coast, including the dog issues. So if you want to stay informed, there is a way to stay informed. The MCC is here to serve the community. It's here to act as a conduit both from the community to the county and the other direction. Bring your issues to the MCC. I'm not saying we'll have an agenda item every time, But if there is enough interest, we will have an agenda item on the issue, and we will have the appropriate people here, if we can.
What is that website again, please?
MidcoastCommunityCouncil.org. Just Google Midcoast Community Council, it's the #1 hit.
So Dave, can you help us, just the amount of people that are here tonight, can you put an agenda to stop them from ticketing us?
So
And have a halt, and until, because
So-
none of the meeting was transparent and open.
Okay, so I'm sorry, as I said, it was very transparent. I'm sorry you didn't hear about it. It was even in the Half Moon Bay Review. It's been on Facebook for months. It's been on Nextdoor. So I am sorry for the people who didn't hear about it. We will consider an agenda item. I'm not going to set an agenda item tonight. People that are interested, get in touch with Chris Johnson, who is the MCC liaison. He's standing there in the back room waving his hand. He spoke earlier.
After this agenda item, I'll go outside.
And you can contact me, or you can contact our chair, Claire Toutant. All of our contact information is on the website, including my phone number and my email, and I'm quite responsive. I actually got a call from somebody in Montero on an issue today. So we're here to help. That's not to say we are going to do what you want, but we're here to listen and try and help. Okay, so.
How many people knew about this law before this week?
So there's one quick question for Peggy.
Five.
So what will be the obstacles to postpone this new policy of ticketing?
It's already happened. It happened in November,
So
last year.
what will be the obstacles in reversing that?
The Board of Supervisors would have to change their ordinance. But what I can tell you is that our policy in the Parks Department is to try to educate people. And enforcement or ticketing is not the first step that we would take. So our hope is that once people understand what the rules are, they will comply. And we have...
Well, wait a minute. I will say to the dog owners in this room, if you're not going to try and work with the Parks Department...
Are they going to work with us?
You're going to find it very difficult to get them to work with you. And I will also say the Parks Department has had signs up now for over a month at all of the county parks on the Mid-Coast, and I imagine other places. Not in quarry. Okay, so that's enough for this agenda item. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess.
What about us commenting? You don't want us to?
We did our bit. All right, let me know when you're ready to roll. All right, we're now reconvening, and our next agenda item is on the San Mateo County Disposable Food Serviceware Ordinance. Unsu Lim will present, so come on up. Thanks.
Good evening, council members. Oh, this is a kind of a tough act to follow. It's definitely an interesting evening for sure. But I'm hoping that this topic might change the currents a little bit, get some bright spots in kind of a challenging night. So I'm here today. So my name is Unsu Lim, and I'm the Senior Sustainability Coordinator with the Office of Sustainability at the county. And I'm here to inform you all about an effort that we're doing around disposable food serviceware. We're putting together an ordinance in close collaboration with our environmental health services with 3 objectives in mind. And there is a handout that should have been passed. Okay, thank you, perfect. Absolutely, thank you. So one of the objectives of this proposed ordinance is to eliminate the unnecessary distribution and use of disposable food serviceware that is not usable or compostable. And we were very intentional in leaving out recyclables again. And it's really because of what's going on in our current market. So as of last year, China basically shut their doors to accepting all the mixed recyclables, mixed plastic recyclables. Most of California, a big chunk of the world, have been sending plastics to be recycled in China for many years now. But as of last year, essentially they closed their doors. They're focusing on fixing their environmental problems. And so a lot of the waste hauling facilities throughout the country, California, even here in our county, we're struggling with what to do with the mixed recycle, the plastics. In some instances, the plastics are being stored on site. In some instances, they are actually being sent to landfills now. And that is the case for some of our haulers in the county, unfortunately. In some instances, in some parts of the country, the plastics are actually being sent to be incinerated. That's how desperate things have become, because there is currently no market or very little market right now for mixed plastic recyclables. And Vietnam, India, Indonesia, other Southeast Asian countries are following suit. They will be closing their doors in the next couple of years as well, really limiting the market for where to send our plastic recyclables. Second objective is to really improve the health and safety of our San Mateo County community members by eliminating disposable food serviceware that's harmful. We're finding plastics everywhere now. And it's the main source. So 1.3 million pounds of trash is going into the Bay Area every year. Of the 1.3, about 80% is from street litter. And of that 80% of the street litter, about 65% is from food and beverage packaging, which is mainly made of plastics. So there's a huge concern, big environmental factor. It's also damaging the beauty of our coastline, of our bay. We have a lot of problems. And once these plastics are out in the open, they get eaten up by marine life, wildlife. We're finding information that when the plastics, they degrade, they don't disintegrate. They just break down to smaller and smaller pieces into what we call microplastics. They're really tiny. And as of last October, there was a study of microplastics being found in humans for the first time, in human stool, in Europe and Japan. So microplastics are everywhere. It's inside us. There's studies confirming that. It's also in our air. There's microplastics that were confirmed in the southern part of France just recently. So there's a chance of us inhaling it. And the problem with microplastics is that they're sticky. So they attract toxins like mercury. And you can imagine what harm it will do to our body once it's inside our bodies. So huge health implications there. And another objective, stormwater. So the county, along with most of the local governments in the Bay Area, we have a regional stormwater permit requirement that we have to meet by July 2022, or the state is going to come down on us. So essentially, we have to eliminate most of the litter on the street. So think about that. There's so many streets in the county, and we have to make sure there's no litter. That's a huge undertaking. So we're trying to explore as many channels, as many strategies to help us get to that goal. So with those three objectives in mind, we came up with a proposed disposable food service ordinance. And just the target audience for this proposed ordinance are food facilities. And so these are entities that provide, sell, distribute prepared food for public consumption. And so it could be restaurants, it could be mobile food trucks, like mobile food facilities, including food trucks, the push cart vendors, farmers markets, some healthcare facilities. There's a list. We're basing the list off of what California's retail food code, what's in the code right now. And it's really limited to those food facilities that serve prepared food. So very different from prepackaged food. So prepared food is any kind of food that's actually, it goes through a kitchen preparation. So chopping, mincing, cooking, microwaving, even portioning, that's considered prepared food. Example of packaged food, which is exempt from this ordinance, is like, for instance, bag of potato chips that was manufactured and and packaged and sealed off-site, and it's brought, shipped to Trader Joe's, for example, and sold there. So that's considered prepackaged. So again, prepackaged is not, is outside the scope of this ordinance. We're really focusing on food facilities that are selling, distributing, providing prepared food to the public. And the target area is unincorporated areas of San Mateo County. But we are currently working with the 20 cities. I'm in conversations with the 20 cities in the county to see if they are interested in adopting something, either taking our ordinance as a model or doing something very similar, because ideally we'd like to standardize, have a consistent policy across the entire county to minimize confusion and make sure everybody is on the same page. And in terms of what items are being targeted, it's disposable food serviceware, so any one-time use items like straws, bowls, plates, cups, clamshells, utensils, napkins, spill plugs, cup sleeves, lids, etc., condiment packets. And in terms of the provisions, so polystyrene is also known as styrofoam. That's still going to continue to be banned because this is going to be an amendment to an existing ordinance that we have, our polystyrene ban ordinance. So we're simply adding additional elements to the existing ordinance. So again, polystyrene will be banned from food facilities. And the next provision would be for all the disposable accessories. So those are the small guys: straws, stirrers, spill plugs, condiment packets, utensils, napkins. So they have to be requested. They could only be provided to the consumer only when requested, or at a self-service station or dispenser so that the customer could go and help themselves. Because we're in a society where if you go to a fast food restaurant, you order a burger, they give you a bag, and in the bag, without you even asking for it, they put a bunch of napkins and condiments and other stuff that you don't really want. And the consumer ends up taking it, not using most of it, and it just goes into the trash or it goes onto our street. So we're really trying to eliminate that and change that behavior. And it'll really save the food facilities some money because they won't be distributing a lot of those accessories. And of those accessories, 4 specific accessories: straws, stirrers, utensils, cocktail, and toothpicks. They have to be made from non-plastic compostable materials. So that includes, so essentially, those items cannot be made from plastic. So it's it includes the traditional plastics as well as compostable plastics. So traditional plastics are plastics made from petroleum-based. Compostable plastics, they're the more newer environmentally friendly, so-called environmentally friendly versions that are made from, for instance, cornstarch. So you'll hear PLA cups a lot. So that's an example of a compostable plastic, but we're actually banning all plastics altogether. And we have, so what will be acceptable? So any fiber-based materials, so it includes wood, paper, straw, bamboo, wheat stalk. So those are the examples of acceptable items. And I actually have examples right here. And then everybody actually has, this black pouch is a reusable metal straw. So I'd like to provide that to everybody. And so these are examples of acceptable items under this proposal. Can you pass it on? Sure. Thank you. And so those are the small accessories. In terms of the big items, plates, bowls, cups, food trays, clamshells, and other to-go takeout containers, they too have to be non-plastic. So they cannot be traditional plastics, they cannot be compostable plastics. So the acceptable items could be like this. It's a clamshell made out of sugar cane. So it looks like paper. So that's an example of an acceptable item.
Is there any stamp? Because I've seen, I don't know, I've seen things are like this.
Yeah,
how do you know?
There is actually, great question. Great segue, because if you flip this one, you'll see a stamp that says Biodegradable Products Institute.
Okay.
So that's a great comment, because for those big items, not only do they have to be non-plastic, but we're also requiring that they be free of fluorinated chemicals. So those are chemicals that that's usually found to coat those plates and clamshells to make them grease and waterproof. But there's emerging research that's saying that the fluorinated chemicals are causing lots of different health ailments, like kidney, testicular cancers, ADHD, onset early puberty, and other sorts of health ailments. So we're trying to eliminate those items that have those coated fluorinated chemicals. So again, for those big items, they cannot be plastic. They could be fiber-based, like sugarcane over there, and they have to be free of fluorinated chemicals. But then how does a food facility know that an item has all those traits? So they have to look for the BPI, Biodegradable Products Institute certification or logo. And if an item says compostable on it, and an item has the BPI logo, then that is a verification that that item is not only compostable, but it also is free of fluorinated chemicals. So that's what we're really pushing for those big items. And of course, we have exemptions written into the proposed ordinance, and that includes aluminum. So the burritos that we buy, that's wrapped in aluminum foil. So the aluminum foil, as well as aluminum tin bowls, they will be acceptable because they could be recycled, and people, usually know to put it into the blue bin. So there's no problem there. Also, for plastic straws, we're allowing food facilities to keep a small supply of plastic straws to be provided to persons with medical accommodations. Definitely taking that into consideration. And if a food facility really can't find a reasonably feasible alternative that meets their need, then they could provide us, submit an application for exemption, and we'll review it. And if we find that they've done all the right research, then we will provide them an exemption for up to a year. And then, of course, our office will maintain and have available a list of approved disposable food serviceware sources on our website and in our office, because we understand that doing research will take time, and we want to definitely be supportive of our food facilities. So we want to do that research on behalf of the food facilities. But if the food facility are really interested in doing their own research, that's totally fine, as long as they use an item that complies with the proposed ordinance. And in terms of next steps, we are currently collecting feedback from different stakeholders. We have 3 events, public workshop events here in June. We just finished a webinar Monday. We're going to be holding an in-person workshop next Monday in Half Moon Bay, and next Wednesday in Redwood City. There's a flyer that's also going around that has that information. And after we collect all the information from our stakeholders, including the food facilities, we will update the ordinance and bring it to the county's Board of Supervisors at the end of summer for review and hopeful adoption. And that's it.
Questions from the council?
I have a question. I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
How about like Safeway that has a deli? Are they exempt? I bought a California roll today, and it had just a single roll, had 3 pieces, level trays, plastic, for this one roll. So would they be, are the grocery stores that prepare food?
Yes, so Safeways, that's a great example. So Safeways, usually a lot of the Safeways and other big supermarkets, they have on-site commercial kitchens where they make those foods. So that, since they're actually preparing that food on-site, that is considered prepared food. So they will need to comply. So that sushi that you got, the package that it comes in, they will need to comply with the ordinance.
And then one other point, I actually spent quite a while on the phone today with the general manager of Recology. And according to her, we got to talking about recycling, that some counties or cities are paying up to $70 $70 a ton to get rid of recycling. And we, on the coast side, are doing so good at cleaning our recycling that they're only paying $20 a ton. And that we're doing a really good job recycling. So I just wondered if you had any comments about that.
That's great. I think that's fantastic.
Were you aware of that?
No, I actually was not aware of that.
You should call her, because she's...
Chris Porter?
Chris Porter.
Gotcha. Yes, I've been trying to get in touch with Chris Porter for a little bit now.
Well, I have her personal phone number, I can give it to you.
No, I'd rather not take that route. No, but I'm actually not surprised that the residents in the coast are doing such a great job in recycling. Unfortunately, I don't think it's, it might not be the same in the other parts of the county. So we do have to take that into consideration as well. But by all means, if the residents here along the coast could continue to sort and reduce contamination, I'm sure it'll make Recology of the Coast very happy, because it'll reduce their costs, and at the end, it'll reduce the cost for the residents here.
Two things. One, is there an estimated timeline of when this would take into effect? And then the other question was, is there an estimate of the cost to these establishments to switch out?
Yes, great questions. So if the ordinance is adopted at the end of the summer by the Board of Supervisors, the effective date the effective date will be 1 year from the adoption. And the reason being is because we want to give our food facilities enough time to transition. Some of them may have a lot of inventory stacked up, so we want to let them use the inventory up. And it'll also give our office, the staff at the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Health Services, time to put together an education and outreach plan. Because if the ordinance is adopted, education and outreach for our food facilities is going to be our highest priority. So we're going to need time to roll that out. So 1 year within adoption. And then in terms of cost, so it depends on, so the cost will vary. Like I said, for the accessories upon request, some of the restaurants may actually end up saving money because they won't be distributing as much of those accessories as they did before. But it's not a blanket statement. It really depends on the operations and the type of the food facility and what they're already doing. Because some of the food facilities I actually see a lot of those clamshells being used already. I see a lot of the restaurants using paper straws already. But then there are those food facilities that are still a little bit behind. And those food facilities that rely heavily on the plastic disposable food serviceware, and they are out there, they will be hit the hardest in terms of cost. That is definitely for sure. But then we're hoping perhaps by adopting this ordinance, it'll really help them step back and see the cost that they may need to incur and really start evaluating some other options that are available for them. For instance, maybe they could consider switching to reusables, because that is ultimately where we want to head. We want to get away from disposables, really push for reusables. It'll take time, but then maybe these food facilities can start doing that. And if they are interested, then we actually have a program that we just kicked off this year. It's called Rethink Disposable. And it provides, we're partnering with a vendor to provide free technical assistance, as well as grants up to $500 for restaurants who are interested in making that transition from disposables to reusables. So we do have a lot of things in place to help our food facilities with the transition.
Yeah. So is this proposed for the whole county or just the unincorporated area?
It would be just for unincorporated, but I am talking with the cities, the 20 cities that are in the county, to see if they are interested in adopting.
Hopefully we can snowball this.
Exactly, that's our plan.
Okay. I got a question about, very small businesses. One example might be food trucks.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're currently, if they drove into how would that work if they drove into the unincorporated?
So even if they're mobile trucks, they still need to comply. If they're operating and serving food in unincorporated, they will need to comply with this ordinance. And we have sent out mailers because we have the contact information for all the food businesses, because if an entity wants to serve food in unincorporated, they have to submit an application, a health permit through the Environmental Health Services. So Environmental Health Services, they know all the folks who are serving food to the public, including the mobile food trucks. So we've sent out mailers informing them, letting them know, hey, if you're going to be providing food to our residents in unincorporated, then you should really read this law and provide us feedback, because it will impact your business.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I'm concerned with. Yeah, first of all, I really support this 100%. Got a big fan right here, but I'm also concerned with, a lot of the small family businesses, some of which have so many other problems already, that are just barely, making it by. I heard you mentioned for some businesses you have a grant program. So my follow-up question, has there been some discussion about possibly, maybe subsidy program, kind of, the transition period, maybe like a sliding scale? We want this small business that might go out of business, we want it to stay in business, but we also want it to act sustainable. So has there been anything, or is it just the grant, the one-time grant program for transition? Is that all?
That's what we have so far now, but what we're also doing right now, so there are about 4,000 food facilities in the entire county, so not just unincorporated. So we're doing a really big door-to-door outreach campaign. We're trying to get in touch with, trying to reach out to about half of the food facilities in all the county. We're working with the vendor, and we're doing a survey and asking them about, what is their operation like? What are the challenges that they're facing? Do they have any interest in switching to reusables? So we have a lot of questions, and we have folks out there currently right now knocking on doors and trying to talk to food facilities to gain additional information to help us plan additional programs that could support the food facilities in the future. So we're doing our homework right now.
Sounds like good work.
Yeah. And so we'll have survey results by the fall, and we're really waiting for the results of the survey, because I'm very hopeful that it will help us inform our next steps, in addition to the grant, the Rethink Disposable program that we have right now.
Great, thank you. And on the greater problem, should we be expecting to be asked to sort our recycles, go backwards? Because, it never made sense to me, and it was just 6 months ago that I heard, it's all a bunch of baloney, they just put it all, and they never recycle it. What? I'm a little upset, hearing this.
I know.
So, we've been fooled, we've been tricked, it's a big scam.
No, I wouldn't. So a lot of, I totally understand how some community members would be frustrated, but it's definitely not the intention of any of the local governments or the haulers in the county to deceive our members, our community members. We're really trying to work within what we can, given the market crash of the recyclables that was from China's market crashing. And a lot of the facilities, the waste facilities in the county, they're scrambling to find solutions. Like, for instance, along the coast, there is in San Carlos, there is a Shoreway Environmental Center, Rethink Waste. They're actually hiring more sorters to increase the quality of the recyclables. I think they're going to invest $15 million in updating their equipment so that it meets China's new super high standards for recycling. So there's a lot being done on the state and national level. The state is definitely trying to put policies and programs to promote more domestic recycling manufacturing in California, so that we're not so reliant on other countries to handle our recyclables. So there's a lot. This is a crisis in terms of the market. And there's a lot of different folks out there, a lot of different entities that are trying to resolve this and do something about it. And a lot of the solutions, some of the solutions are short-term because we have to deal with the market crash right now, but then the solutions are also long-term as well. So it will take time.
So some of it is sorted here, some of it is just all put together.
Yeah, and it really depends
I'd
on the
really like to,
hauler.
to go and visit and observe
Sure.
that. Do you recommend just calling the hauler Midcoast?
I would.
They did tell me today that they do not put any in landfill. They
Mhm.
send it down to San Jose, and it's processed down there. They don't put it in Ox Mountain.
And yes, you're correct. There's some haulers that are lucky in that they still have a market, that they're able to sell their recyclables to a third entity. But then not all the haulers are as lucky. So for instance, Rethink Waste, the big hauler, waste hauler in San Carlos, they are sending it to Ox, unfortunately. Republic is also sending it to Ox. Recology of the Coast is very lucky. I think South San Francisco Scavenger up in South San Francisco, they have a small market up there too. So it really depends on the hauler and what kind of contract they have with other third parties that could take in the recyclables.
So the driving date of July of 2022, is that at the state level?
That is, so it's the California State Water Board's mandate, and that specific deadline is for almost all the local governments in the Bay Area.
Okay, so that would apply to cities and counties.
Yes,
as well.
exactly. So
everybody
it's not just the county.
You're running the county program, but the cities have the same deadline to meet as well.
Exactly.
A few things. If you can send me links to these documents, I'll put them on the MCC website. And you already partially answered one of my questions when you were answering Dan, but as you heard during this dog thing, we hear over and over again that the affected people didn't know it applied to them. And since everybody who serves food does have to register, you do have full contact information.
Yes,
I'm glad to hear you are utilizing that information.
We sent out 2 different mailers. We've sent out multiple emails. We're doing community outreach. We're using every channel that we could think of.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear about your grant program. It's a token, but it may be enough to get people moving. I occasionally go to restaurants here on the coast that serve you in the restaurant in plastic materials that are one use. So glad to see that going away. One of the questions that came up is at a new restaurant in Half Moon Bay is whether under the food safety rules it is legal for people to bring in their own containers to have their takeaway food put into. Do you happen to know the answer to that?
So that's a complicated matter.
It's a very complicated one.
Because a lot of people are actually looking into that. So in the current California Retail Food Code, it actually states that customers can bring in their own containers. But the state is very vague in providing more additional information because they say as long as the reusable container brought in by the customer is handled in an uncontaminated process. But they don't define what uncontaminated process is. And they're highly aware of that. So there are a lot of entities, including nonprofits, banging on their door saying, hey, what does that mean? Can you please clarify? So the state, they are actually working on expanding that portion of the California Retail Food Code right now. In terms of beverages, I think they have more flexibility because beverages tend to, they're less of a risk in terms of health implications or health contamination.
Like Starbucks, they'll give you the discount. If
Exactly.
You put in your thing, so that
Right.
is there
Yeah.
Right, and that's what started this whole set of questions
Yes.
about food. And yes, there are all those questions about how they handle somebody else's containers and whether you contaminate other people's food.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear it's being worked on further.
For sure. And I'm definitely keeping tabs on that because I'm very interested in that as well.
So you mentioned you're going and talking as part of this to all the cities. I assume that's being done partially through CCAG?
Yes, so I have also reached out to CCAG and we're in talks. And they're very interested in this proposed ordinance because it definitely helps them meet their the stormwater requirement. So we are in talks with them as well.
Great. Anybody else have anything? Anybody in the audience want to speak? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're working with
So I'm Kimberly Williams. I live in Moss Beach. And I'd just like to say that I fully support this, and I'm actually one of the volunteers who are going around and talking to the restaurants. So I've been handing out these flyers. I've also been conducting a survey that Insu mentioned. And so far, all of the restaurants I've talked to are very enthusiastic and supportive of this. Even the ones who are uncertain about whether, how they would comply, they still support it wholeheartedly. I haven't run into any that weren't. And to your question, Dan, there are a lot of questions for me when I give the survey about cost, but they all are very interested in seeing how they can meet the cost. So it doesn't seem to be putting anybody off. I would also say that there are a lot of restaurants in the county, including here in Half Moon Bay, who are already doing a lot of these things, and they're doing it very successfully. And so those restaurants I consider leaders in helping other restaurants get on board to do some of this stuff and sharing best practices. So I hope that helps. I also am a volunteer with Surfrider Foundation, and they also encourage some of these practices as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would assume as this becomes more widespread that the cost of these products will come down. They may never come down quite as close as the really cheap plastic ones, but I think that's a fair trade-off. And since everybody will be using them, it's a cost. It's not going to be like the small person has a competitive disadvantage because everybody will be using them. Great. Anything else?
Instead of the informational part, would it be possible for the council to?
Right. So it seems to make sense to have the council support this by at least a motion here and probably by a follow-up letter. I volunteered to write a letter for a future meeting, but for this meeting, does anybody want to make a motion to support this ordinance?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. And it's basically just to write a letter saying that we fully support this program. Simple.
Yeah,
I
so
fully support
so
that.
two parts. One will be a letter at a future meeting. The other is tonight to say the council voted to support this ordinance
Yes,
and
well,
the
that's
process.
automatic.
Great. Any other discussion on this? Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Great. All carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question?
Sure.
Please. And that is, oftentimes when people go out to eat, they're leaving and you've got the three things, and one might be landfill, one might say plastic, one might say, it gets confusing. And sometimes they have 1,000 pictures of different little items. It's, okay, where is it, It's just this, I think that there needs to be two things. Number one, a simplification, not have 1,000 different types of utensils or whatever, and then just really simple, a dirty paper plate goes here, what, to help. So I don't know if there's maybe a little bit, at this point in time, an expanded kind of a handout, trifold or something, that really breaks it down, This is what's considered landfill, this is what's considered plastic, and if it has no recycle stamp on it, that kind of stuff. Because it does get confusing. And I don't think I think most of the people love it. They go. So if it's simplified and very easy to understand, it'll get divided up, in my opinion.
And I actually agree with you on that. And what exacerbates the problem is that different haulers collect different items. So some haulers might collect black plastic, for instance. I know Ecology of the Coast collects black plastic. but up in the Bayside, they don't collect black plastic. So there are different variations. It's not standardized, so it makes everything a bit more harder, and it confuses people. So I don't blame folks for being confused about sorting. And I know all the local governments are working with different haulers to try to simplify the messaging as much as possible. So that's going to be an ongoing battle. And then the folks the community members, I think they also need to have the desire to learn, to take the time out to look at the pictures and the designs and the brochures. I think if we have both of them in place, then we'll be successful. So the county's definitely making progress, putting together education and outreach and working with all the right partners to make that happen.
Thank you very much for your work on this. All right, we are on to agenda item 6, council activity. Does anybody have anything to report?
I do. On June 7th, I went to the SEAT meeting, and I'm really not sure what that what that's for, but they gave a presentation, Sam gave a presentation about what happens when PG&E does their PSPS program, if it would happen down here, how long the system would work, and what happens with our organic materials, and that was about it. So I'm
So concerned on the.
I'm just kind of wondering what our part is on that.
I think because there's now multiple parties trying to look at the problem, it's a little bit hard to differentiate it right now. That particular one tries to be, I guess, flexible to go after a concept problem. But you should carry that forward, just a little.
Yeah, no, I plan on doing it. I would just, there's CERT and there's all these different
Yeah,
groups
just when you
doing.
put all these, sort of like Dan trying to figure out what to do with the recycling, which one is it?
Okay, and there's not going to be a meeting in July, to meet again in August.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I just want to give a little bit of an update on the Catch Joanne situation. So,
Okay, keep it to very brief reporting, because this is council activity. I don't want to get into ground that territory.
yeah, it'll just be one-way direction. I think everybody knows the 3-0 Cafe, Catch Joanne Restaurant, Harbor Bar, because of the size of their bathrooms, we're sued in an ADA lawsuit. Originally, I understood that some California Health Department made them put a padlock on it, but the owners, the operators, put the padlock on, I think, basically to protect themselves from another lawsuit. Apparently, it's okay to have a bathroom, or to have a restaurant, but not a bathroom. There is across the parking lot, I don't know how it's gonna work in the rain season, nearby, but how do they define it? I think, anyway, so that's going on. It's obviously not sustainable. So something really doesn't sound right, and I guarantee I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. And I really want to reach out to the county to help me. So hopefully, we can at least understand what's really going on and do what's best for the county and, for the community and the place of business. That's all I want to say.
All right, anybody else?
The career leadership meeting in May, the presentation was on some mental health services available, compassion speakers regarding the principal at Fairmont View, supporting him in his role basically, and some inspiring young students presenting on, they were requesting motorcycle services at their school, which is kind of surprising that that wasn't already there than we think it is, but that's just some nuggets from that.
So I talked to you about approaching them with regard to school construction And I said, since the superintendent and assistant superintendent were leaving to go to the business manager, that she's leaving too, so I just have to move. And so,
And we'll try to keep going with some of those meetings.
yeah, good.
Great. Nothing else from me. We have future agenda items that anybody wants to add now.
Bruce?
Yes, I'd like to add the item of understanding how our communication are, so that everybody's can be aware if they want easily of all communications that come in, because it's just filtered by a couple people, and what might be important over here or not important over here is important over here, that kind of thing. And the idea is to make it, a system that works well.
Transparent.
Yeah, not burdens, not too burdensome,
But
but
I don't,
not
I
too
don't quite know
burdensome.
the point you're trying to make though, in terms of an agenda item.
We're gonna have to I want to review the policy on how we handle all communications coming into the council. Is that clear?
No, in that basically we gave areas, we subdivided areas of responsibility for people
Okay,
to
so-
make can I finish?
Well, okay.
To have a responsibility to review it. Any member can get any of the materials that come to all of those areas. So if anybody wants to, so that's what I'm not.
Okay, so, my take is that, there's 3 people that are designated to, look at, monitor.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, are you speaking specifically of planning and building issues, or all issues?
Everything.
Okay, well, this is way off topic.
Okay,
We'll talk about it outside the meeting. Yeah, okay, it's on a future agenda list.
Okay. The other item I wanted to mention is to bring the.
Can we
Thank
talk
you.
a bit? Yeah.
Sitting here, there's somebody else. I wanted to bring before the council the consideration of establishing a committee that deals with State Route 1. This was last looked at it as a committee about 4 or 5 years ago, and the council at that time did not take up that opportunity, but I think it should be revisited. So I'm proposing to try to get materials on that for discussion in our first meeting in July.
I'd be interested in that, Lynn.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
we'll
it's for the community.
certainly discuss it as an agenda item. Any other future agenda items?
Tamar and I are working on a project dealing with the 2 water sanitation districts and ecology on composting, and we're trying to work together on a presentation about that.
Okay.
Peggy?
If you all want to have someone be interviewed by the search group, the Parks Director, we'll probably need to have that name in a week or 2. And I don't know whether you want to agendize that and post
If it needs to be next week, let's just find out right now who's interested. I will say right up front, I'm interested in being that person. Does anybody else want to be that person?
I'm interested, but I'm happy to have you take the job.
So, before I say I'm interested, what do you, how much time, what are you talking about? What do you think?
It would probably be an hour if we phone call.
Yeah, I'm interested.
But you need one name, right?
Just one.
You need one name.
Yeah.
I think so, I mean.
One or
I'll
2?
see, I'll check with we haven't selected a consultant yet, and I'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, the first thought I had when you mentioned it is, just narrowing down to one person seems overly restricted. 2 or 3 people were interested, that I'm not sure why that could necessarily be a good idea. So why don't you bring that up?
To the consultant if there's.
It's just that they-
Great.
The conversation would probably happen at the same time, and maybe be a conference call, I don't know exactly how.
If every organization in the county wanted to send 2 people to this, it would be a little unwieldy.
But it's doable, I think. Sounds like it's doable. So,
Okay. So So let's put down my name and Dan's, and if you can only take one, then we'll work it out who it is.
And I'll work it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I have one last thing. We have a bill to renew our website that Lisa has paid for, so I have a check. I'm waiting for Claire to come back to sign that. And then we have the treasurer's report due for the fiscal year, so Dave and I are going to work on that. And it was $192 for the website.
Yeah, it's relatively cheap these days.
Motion to adjourn?
We are adjourned. Thank you, one and all.